Uh, Welcome to the Tuesday night Anyone Can Farm live chat. I'm Mark, your host, coming from Baker's Green Acres. Today's the 23rd of January, 2024. And life continues. Our topic tonight is leadership, developing leadership. And you might be thinking, like, what are you talking about? You know, I'm trying to put together my own homestead here. What do you mean leadership? Like, are you thinking that I'm supposed to start showing people how to do the things that I have mastered on my homestead? Well, the short answer to that is yes. And it might seem a little like I'm asking a lot of you, but we have a lot of things going on. And, you know, we always have had a lot of things going on. As a matter of fact, this entire podcast, this entire operation is because things were going on. You know, when I got out of the military, I just wanted to be left alone. Just leave me alone. I just want to be left alone. I wanted to live a quiet life. You can ask Jill sometime if you come here if this is true. But I said we were moving here to a different state. Nobody knew me here. And I said to her, you know, I just want it so when my name comes up, people are like, oh, who's that? I don't know who that is. Who's that guy? That's how I wanted it. I wanted to be tremendously anonymous. And I believe in the United States, there was a time when you could do that. You just keep your head down, stay busy. Nobody's going to bother you. You'll be left alone. But it's not like that now. It's not like that at all. There's certain things that we've found that you have to really be careful on. Case in point, hello, Belva. We've had to make some changes to this broadcast because we really have no choice but to partner with, like, I'm on YouTube right now, and if I say certain things on this broadcast, tomorrow, the next day, when it, you know, settles in, they'll take it down. They'll just take it down, and then they'll put a strike against me. A strike. You have a strike. And I've gotten lots and lots of strikes, and I'll get like 2, and then I'll simmer down for a while. But I decided I don't want to be involved in that. I don't want somebody to be wagging their finger at me saying, you can say this, but you can't say this. I don't want that. I don't want to be involved with that. To me, that's just, no. I've got the right to free speech in this country. I know I'm on a private platform here, but if they're going to be that way, then I don't want to be on this platform. That's all there's to it. Now, for right now, we're going to do the show live the way we always have and speak the truth. And then the next day it's taken down. And that's the way we're going to avoid it. And we want to do all of the impromptu how-to videos on a totally different platform. We got involved in Telegram, got all set up on Telegram. Jill walked me through the whole thing. Then I find out today, oh, you can only go a minute. And then they turn you off. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But you have to look at the Bill of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, to get a clue what's going on here. The Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the First Amendment says you have the right to free speech. And after that is you have the right to own and bear arms. Now, on this particular platform, I don't have the right to free speech. There's certain things I can't say. And it seems as though this platform is lockstep with a enemy demonic force that is in this country right now. It's actually in the world. And it seems, if you're watching the news, which, like, how can you not watch the news? That things are coming to a head. I mean, today, big news out of the Supreme Court. They instructed the state of Texas that they can no longer secure their own border. So our federal government is confounding the problem and making the problem worse. In essence, we have no southern border now. I happen to have watched a documentary on the border last night. I've watched 2 or 3 of them. This one was particularly difficult to watch. Yuma County sheriff went out for took a journalist out for a ride along, and just showed him all the places where they try to get the immigrants, the illegals, to come through there so they can process them. They take their little picture and then they give them a date 10 years from now where you're supposed to appear before a judge and make your case that you're fleeing an oppressive government. Yeah, that's why you should come in. And then they hand them a credit card with $2,200 on it. And from then on, every member of the family gets that until they make their date, which is 10 years out, 10, 11, 12 years out, depends. And this was disturbing to watch. There were people from all over the planet coming, and they fly in this case, to Mexicali, which is on the other side. It's on the Mexican side. I've actually been there. And then they get a short bus ride up to the border, and then they're dropped off by, like almost like an Uber service. And the number of them that are coming through is staggering. So if you look at that and you say, now, why would Supreme Court Justice Roberts, who's a good conservative guy, why would he do that? And Amy Coney Barrett, our favorite little Catholic gal, why would she do something like that? Because they had the votes in the Supreme Court to say, no, state of Texas has the right to secure their own border. The state's being overrun. Actually, all of the states are being overrun right now. And it's disturbing because there's a lot of military-age males coming in, which is disturbing. Can be. But it's just, it's just a symptom of this struggle that we're in as a society of men right now. I mean, you'd think any sober person would look at that and say, this is not good. This is not good, But when you hear the testimony from these so-called sober persons, it's, we're in for a struggle. We're in for a struggle. And I mean, that's just one situation. And then we have situation going on in the Middle East right now that is really disturbing as well. And I'm not really here to talk about those things. I think those things are something that you need to look at and you need to say, okay, is it time for me to be who I need to be right now? And I tell you what, I feel like I was prepared for this time. And as I thought about it today, I'll give you a heads up what my day was like today. I had the milk this morning, me and Frank milked, and we did it in record time. And most of the milk went out and people got what they needed, and it was a beautiful thing. Had some visitors stop in that wanted to be new customers, and then we showed them around the farm a little bit. A couple of Marines that had just retired, man and woman. The woman hadn't retired. The man had. I think she'd been in like 10 or 15 years. Um, but really nice people. But they came out of Washington, and all they did was shake their heads. It's just like it's out of control. And we talked a little bit, but then I had another customer show up, and so I had to deal with them. And so we had conversations, and on the front of everybody's mind is what is happening. How can this be happening? And you want to scream and say, somebody get control of this, right? But I think things are going to go their course. I've said for a long time that I remain optimistic, and I had hope in other agencies that were going to intervene, but that has come and gone, and I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know. How can we know? We kind of get our news from the internet, basically, and it seems as though they have that pretty well locked down, because I don't get the information that I used to get, for sure. And the way the internet has become is they do the carrot and stick thing with you on, say, like YouTube or really any of them. And if you espouse things that they don't want you to be talking about, that are not on the good topics list, like self-sufficiency and honesty and integrity and producing food and taking care of your neighbor and things like that. If you're talking about that, they don't really want that. But if you're talking about some of the weirdness, then fine. Oh, yeah. And if you are a content provider, right? If you make content and that's your major shtick, that's how you feed your family, then you're looking for views and clicks and all that stuff, because that's how you get paid. Then you fall right in line. You won't talk about things, and you will talk about other things. I can't do that. I just can't do that. That's why I pitched the towel in on this months back, and I said, I can't do this. I was sick and tired of being told what I couldn't talk about, And I would think that in a career field like this, farming, I can say all day long, isn't that a nice cow out there? But if it's a bull, it's a bull, but somehow in American world or American consciousness, I almost feel like I'm dreaming sometimes. You can have a man put on a dress and talk with a higher octave voice, and they put him on magazine covers and call him Woman of the Year. And some of these magazines are magazines that I used to pick up, at the dentist office or wherever. And now I just I wouldn't touch them. I would not touch those magazines, because it's not truth. And the more untruth there is thrown at you every day, and they try to enforce it, untruth. Men can be women, women can be men. Pronouns, very important. Thrown in jail for misgendering somebody. All that bull. It's baloney. It's not real. We have to call it out. And getting thrown off the internet for that, that's the stick. The carrot is, we'll give you more clicks. See, I won't get any clicks. They're not going to let me have clicks. They don't let this spread out naturally the way it used to. Like they won't give alerts that we're going to go live and all that stuff. And a lot of people are reading the tea leaves. I was going to say smelling the tea leaves, smelling the coffee. They're seeing it on a gut level. They're saying, I need to do something. I need to do something for my personal safety. A lot of times we jump to the conclusion is, man, I need to call my congressman, right? I used to know a guy back in Montana, and he used to rant like that. You better call your congressman. He was an ex-Marine, and he would get flustered about stuff. You better call your congressman. And I don't even remember what he was getting flustered about, because I didn't know anything about anything back then. I was active duty. I just did what I was told. I knew about 9/11. I knew about that because I could see it with my own eyes, and that was kind of the business I was in. But I thought that, well, they must have a reason for this. There's got to be a bigger psychological reason that, the good guys are in charge. Of course, President Bush, he's a good guy. He's a Republican. And I think it had to do with something about that. But he'd say to me, you better call your congressman. And then I had problems here. And it was obviously make believe what the claim that the state was putting out there. They claimed that we have a feral swine problem in the state of Michigan. They claimed it. Not that anybody ever saw one, but then they backed down. They said, well, we want to avoid it. We want to avoid it, like a pre-crimes unit. We know it's going to happen, so we want to avoid it because we're proactive. That's what they did. But they wanted me to get rid of my property to avoid it. And I wound up having to get into the Constitution and find out what my rights are. Otherwise, I was just fat, dumb, and happy like everybody else. Like, oh, you can't do this? Oh, I didn't know. I didn't really know. But I did get into it. And so I learned a lot of things. And I found out that centralization of food is one of the aspects, one of the facets they're using to get people under control, right? That's the goal right now, is to get people under control, under their thumb. And that's the struggle. That's the struggle. That's part of the struggle. And I can get on here and I can say, no, Klaus Schwab, he shouldn't really be doing what he's doing. But all of you guys hear me say that and say, yeah, somebody needs to do something. And that's as far as it goes. That's as far as it goes, because you can't get your hands around those people. If the guy lived in Lake City, maybe about 5 of us could go and visit him and beat him senseless and say, you knock it off, Junior. But you can't get at him, right? You can't get at any of them, right? Like, what's going on at the border? You can't get at these people. And they don't care what you think. They don't care. They don't represent you. I think you should know that by now, right? You should know that. So the storm is coming. Storm is coming. And it's at much higher levels than just here. I'm not a player in the storm. There's no way I'm not a player in the storm. Not all 6 of you watching me right now. But my message is that as a group, we can have an effect. We can have an effect. It's a small group. It's a small group. So what I wanted to talk about was leadership, right? What leadership comes down to is training your replacement. Training your replacement. I've been there for a long time, but I've never really come right out and said that this is critical. I believe now it is critical. I really believe it's critical. And as I was trying to decide how are you gonna lead into this tonight and impress on people that, hey, maybe I have a responsibility here to do something. Maybe the world that we know right now might not be like this a week from now. Look at a week ago. Look at how much change has happened in a week. A week from now, where could we be? And you, as relatively new farmers, right? I've been at it 20 years. I've been here 20 years. So I guess I've been at it like 25 years. In my last place, my hobby farm. So I maybe have a little bit more experience in the things that I do. But I was prepared for it. And that's what I want to talk about. I've been prepared for this. Did I prepare myself? No, I was prepared for this, right? And so I just want to go through some basic tenets of leadership that those of you that are on tonight, you're going to hear it, and it's going to go into your memory banks. And maybe a week from now, you're going to be thrust into leadership positions because you know more than 90% of the people that live in your township or your county, right? What has happened to American society is it's become extremely compartmentalized. We don't have many people that are the jack of all trades, the master of none. We don't have those people anymore. Everybody's been, and they've become comfortable with it. I don't know how they did that. You know, I could see trying to divide people up and, well, this guy knows how to fix teeth, but he can't hammer a nail. This guy knows how to do this, but he doesn't know how to do this or this. He's real good at this one thing, but other than that, he can do spreadsheets all day long, but can't tie his shoes. Well, that's not a good, sustainable thing. That's not a survival characteristics. You're not very suitable for survival. We need to be far more capable in lots and lots of things. But we are where we are right now. And people that are going to hear this, I'm asking you, or maybe I'm telling you, that things may change and you may be brought into a place where you have to be in leadership. Now, for me, I started out on this road. I guess I would have probably been about 10. But I always liked things that were outdoors. My grandfather used to take me fishing. Then my father took me fishing. My parents weren't into hunting. My father was a World War II guy, and he did not like guns. I remember I had acquired an M1 Garand rifle, a really nice one. And I said, "You want to see this?" And he's like, "No, I don't." Didn't want to touch it. And I can relate to that now. You know, I really can. But we weren't hunters or anything. But I always wanted to be a hunter. And I got a 22 when I was a kid. I had a pellet gun. And I shot squirrels and I skinned them out and I ate the squirrels. I ate rabbits. I ate pheasants and doves. Nobody in my family did, and they thought I was kind of had a screw loose. I liked to make campfires out in the woods and make believe I was a pioneer and go on expeditions. And there was woods behind our house, and I got to the other end of the woods one time when I was about 12 years old, and it was like I had gone to the other side of the flat earth. It seemed like such a long ways away. And I'd always been into that type of thing. And then I joined the Boy Scouts when I was probably in 6th grade. And I happen to have right here with me my original Scout handbook. Well, I was a Cub Scout, and then I was a Weeblo, and then I was an actual Boy Scout. But that wasn't until about 6th grade, I think, or 7th grade. And so this is my original Scout handbook. You can see a couple of things I can show you. You see this outline here? That was a STP sticker I had on there. Yeah. And then this is from some tape that I had on here. And that tape had a dime under it. Because when you went to Boy Scouts, we had inspection every day. And the Scout motto, be prepared, right? Be prepared. And so you'd have to go through inspection, and you can see in the inside cover, I had a dime there. There was a dime there, and for a phone call, and then there was a pencil right here, and then I had a little notepad, I think, right there. So I had my stuff. So long as I had my book, my scout book, my scout handbook, I would have all those things. And then you can see I colored this guy's face in red to make him look like an Indian. This guy, I put a beard on him. Wait a minute, right there. And that is a pellet hole. This was sitting on a bookshelf one time when I was homesick. And I decided that I was going to shoot my gun in the house. Yep. So I did. That was my 22 caliber pellet gun. I had a 22 caliber Crossman 10 pump pellet gun. So anyway, I was a scout, and I wasn't really even a very good scout. I was never really a rank guy. Like, even when I was in the Air Force, I was never really interested in making the next rank. I was more interested in what I was doing, what I was actually doing. You know, like if I was working in a certain shop and it had certain equipment that I was supposed to know, I got into it, and I wound up knowing that equipment really well. And I actually received an award one time that is probably the most prestigious thing that I ever got, and I thought the most of it. And it was a master technician. And in the squadron I worked in, there was only two, and I was one of them. And I thought that was pretty good. I was really proud of that. I wore it on my uniform right here. I was authorized to wear it. It's a round master technician. But I was never really into the rank thing. So when I was in the Boy Scouts, I did a lot of Boy Scout things on my own, in the woods behind my parents' house. I used to build things and all that stuff. So I was really into being prepared. I'd get down into the woods, and I wouldn't have something. I'd have to walk back to the house and get it, like a knife or matches or something, candle. And I'd have to walk. So I was always like wanting to be prepared. And even now, if you guys ever come here, say, hey, what do you get in your pockets? We'll start pulling stuff out, and you'll see I'm prepared most of the time. I rarely go any place without this. And you'll remember, and that's important to me. Why? Because I actually do this for a living. And you go outside without this, and you'll find out that you're going to be walking back to the house to get it. You have to make a repair to something, a fence. You have to grab a bolt or something. You have to cut something. You want to smoke a cigar, and you have to cut the end off of it. You need this, right? All kinds of stuff. You get a big splinter you got to pull out. And you have these little snippers on. You got to cut up some bale strings, and you got a knife on there. Prepared. Be prepared. So I've always kind of gone that route, and I continue to go that route. And I continue to, as a preparedness person, I continue to watch the sky at night. If the sky at night is really, really red, I know that red sky at night, sailor's delight. So the next day, I'm probably going to have a nice day. Red sky in the morn, sailors be warned. So keep an eye on things. So watching the news and trying to get a feel for what is happening around us makes me be able to gauge my preparedness level, right? And I'm probably at this moment at the highest preparedness level, like the most urgent that I've been at. However, as a lifelong, I'm not really a prepper. I'm more of a survivalist. And as a survivalist, the ultimate is I create my own food. I I have these beings that walk around on the field and they eat the grass that grows out there and they turn it into beef. Amazing. And they also have these things that hang underneath them, and then you can milk them, and you get this. And you know what? They really don't like us talking about that. They really don't like that. If you are some tattooed gal, and you get out and you talk about your greenhouse, oh, they'll push that forever, and you'll have 1 million views, and then people will, oh, will you advertise this beautiful Polaris side by side for us? Because they have 1 million views, so people see, oh, Polaris. But somebody that's kind of going against the grain, like milk cows. Milk cows. It's a good thing. It's a real good prepping thing. You can probably survive on a glass of milk all day. And all it is cellulose grass that's gone through a cow. And you milk it. I got 4 gallons from one of my cows today. We could feed a lot of people with that, But the system doesn't like that. They even have these rumors out there that milk is dangerous. If the system ever tells you something is not good for you, you better take another look at it. If they tell you something is good for you, it's like upside down world. And about half of the people listen to whatever they say. I swear, I've told you, I have someone in my life. I will not mention who it is because you never know if they're listening to this. But during the toilet paper crisis, I said, well, just buy napkins. No, you can't, this person says. You can't. It will clog the pipes. And there's fibers in there. It can give you cancer around your butthole. I'm not kidding. And these are highly educated people. Highly educated people are just real good at when they hear something, they can spit it back out like they're the smartest person in the room. But they don't think. They're not capable of their own thoughts. And I wonder about that sometime. I heard a podcast the other day. It was Owen Benjamin, and he was interviewing a guy. And forget who the guy was. It was pretty good. And they were contemplating, are there any original thoughts? And are my thoughts mine? Are they mine? Did I originate them? Like I'll say sometimes, hey, I had a good idea. Is that mine? What about when you have a bad idea? When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's like, if you wanted to, you could do this. And it's a bad thing. Where'd that come from? It's like almost like an audible voice. So you get this feeling like the good and the evil. And sometimes I'll have good thoughts and I'll act on those good thoughts. And yeah, they were good thoughts. It was a good thing. Telling somebody something nice or whatever. But once in a while you get a bad thought and it's like, why did I do that? Anyway. So anyway, I was always into the preparedness thing. And throughout my life, when I was Boy Scout, even though I never made Eagle Scout. It wasn't all that important to me, really. And still, I don't feel like I missed out on anything because I didn't make Eagle Scout. In the Air Force, I didn't actually become I didn't make chief. And it didn't really bother me that much, It really didn't. I didn't want to be in with the in crowd. There was a lot of politics in the Air Force, and I was always the guy that would tell it like it is, and that wasn't always conducive to sucking up to all the right people. You know, I refused to suck up to. I had two very bad commanders that did not want to see me progress in it. And I'm not victim mental. I wasn't that interested in it because these bad commanders, one of them was a black guy, right? And you could tell what he wanted. I knew what he wanted, and I could have given it to him. I could have just been exactly who he wanted me to be, and he would have given me a star on my forehead. I would have been a special boy, but I wouldn't, because he wasn't a good officer, and I couldn't support him. And another guy that was actually a Korean, and he was the worst officer I ever came in contact with, and it was very difficult, very difficult. But I'm not blaming them. I just wouldn't capitulate to their nonsense. It was nonsensical. Actually wound up calling one of them out pretty intently over some rotten stuff that he did, and asked other people to cover up. And yeah, it didn't go well for him. Went okay for me though, but I didn't make it to the highest rank. But I was always a do the thing type person. But along with that came understanding of these processes. And so it's real easy for me to pass it along. It's real easy to be a trainer, right? And I have found that training people to do what I'm doing, although sometimes it can be a pain, you like, no, just let me do what I want to do. It helps you to understand it better. People will ask you questions, and when you get a question, it actually changes your perspective, because you try to, like, what is he talking about? So you look at it from over here, and then you gain a better understanding of the process that you're teaching. You really do. And you learn how to handle people better. You learn how to see it from their point of view, approach it from their point of view. You're able to assess them and say, okay, well, this guy, he's going to need it at this level. This guy's going to need it at this level, you know, and things like that. So you develop a sixth sense as far as that goes. But I wanted to go through a few principles that leaders really need to know, and then talk about them a little bit. And this is in the event that things change and you are called into a leadership position. I started to try to make a crash course in what is a good leader? What is a good leader? Like, can you be a leader just because you want to be a leader? I've known some people that were really good at taking tests and making the next rank, but when it came to leadership, they were horrible. And it was really the guys that were focused on the process that were the good leaders, because they were leading other people who wanted to know how to do the thing, right? So this goes back to, if you do the thing, you will have the power. Ralph Waldo Emerson, he quoted that. If you do the thing, you will have the power. If you do not do the thing, you will surely not have the power. It's like, I had a really good friend that was able to read material, Air Force material. We had these things, we call it was the PFE, Proficiency Manual, and then the Specialty Knowledge Information, SKT they called it. And if you memorize those books, you would make your next rank. But it was tedious and it was boring, and I don't know, there's so many fun things to do. But this guy would sit down with it, thumb through it, boom, he'd make his next rank. So he wound up being an E7. But when you would watch him try to do something, Really nice guy, good friend of mine. I like the guy, actually. But when you watched him try to do something, he didn't have the experience to do it. He had no ability to actually do the thing. But he had the rank. He was an E7, and he was in charge. And he's actually a very good boss. He realized that was not his strength, but he made things good for us that were his lead mechanics to get the thing done. Yeah, I remember that very well. And at the time thinking, I don't want to be where he is, I don't want to be. But see, then for him, he's in the office all the time. He can keep studying, making his next rank. And I think he made chief. I'm pretty sure he made chief. Real good guy. But I didn't make Eagle Scout neither. And where I'm at right now, I don't think there is a ranking system. Although you might say, well, he's got 500,000 followers on YouTube. He has made it. And then you get invited to all these conferences and all that stuff. Where the only reason I like going to conferences is because I like to meet with other people, right? I don't want to go there so I can have a red speaker ID on. I'm not really into that. I like to hang around with other homesteaders. That's fun. Like going to Boy Scout camp. That was fun. And in the Air Force, it was fun. It was actually fun. So anyway, I went through my book, and I am very familiar with this book. I was going through it. Now this is something that should be evident to everybody at this point, but anything that is good and decent and is actually going to help American society progress is under attack. I mean, it is under attack. If you are like me, you're under attack. You are under attack, and you can feel it, The Boy Scouts trained boys to become men, right? You learn tracking, you learn camp skills, you learn, first aid, you learn fire lay. You learn tracking animals, you learn compass reading. That's what we need. We need first responders. We need men to be men, right? And I love women. I surely does. I loves the women. But they have a role, and it's not necessarily the things that men do. If you look at our society, the infrastructure is put together by men for the most part. Women have their role, but men have their role. And anymore, anything that is inherently manly is under attack. Like the Boy Scouts of America, now most of the troops are gone because the girls said, well, I want to be in that too. Where if you were a boy and you wanted to be in the Girl Scouts, that wouldn't work out. And you would think that the Boy Scouts would have prevented that from happening, but they were infiltrated many years ago by the homosexuals, actually. And so then what's the best way to ruin the Boy Scouts? Let's get a bunch of women in there. It always ruins it. It always does. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm here to speak truth. We had huge problems in the military because of females. Huge problems. I mean, they had career fields that they were good in, but then in the general populace, things went haywire really quickly. Women are nurturers. They're not the hunter-killer types. And unfortunately, weak young men wind up following them and learning how to whine and complain. And that's just the way it is. And I'm here to speak truth. You may not like it, but that was my experience. I think women in the military was one of the worst things they could have ever done. There's certain places maybe, but overall it did not work out. That was my experience of it. I saw some horrible things happen because of it. Anyway, yeah, so this is the year of truth. So if you don't like it, tough. you know, uh, that one would get me kicked off because tomorrow somebody will hear this that likes my content, but that you've gone too far. And then they complain. They go to mom and they tell, right? It's, if you don't like the content, get off, go someplace else, listening to somebody else. But I want to read this. You and prepared for, this is at the beginning of the book. And there's wonderful pictures here of, this is a boy that is saving another boy that's drowning. This is a Boy Scout with a lantern that appears to be directing traffic after a storm. Here's a bunch of Cub Scouts that are listening to a Boy Scout tell them about, heroic things and being of service to others. And here's a Boy Scout right here taking his oath, his promise to society to uphold the good, the true, and the beautiful, right? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, that's strength right there, and it had to be destroyed, and that's why they've gone after the Boy Scouts. So what? We'll bob and weave, Well, the Boy Scouts are gone. That's the end of it. No, not on my watch. It isn't, right? So let me just read this. Scouting is far more than hiking and camping fun. Scouting is learning to grow into responsible manhood, learning to be of service to others. Can you imagine that? Service to others. So when times get tough, the answer may be for you, I'm going to have to take leadership here. I'm going to have to take leadership. Or most likely you're pushed into leadership because you know stuff other people don't. Okay? So then we get over to oath. Okay. Scout oath. And I'm just going to go through this real quick. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the Scout law. So this is written for a very young person, and they don't understand. They're being brought into Americana, into patriotism, into being a keeper of the Constitution, a protector of the Constitution, a protector of American lifestyle, of the weak, And so they say, obey the Scout law. The Scout law pretty much is based on the Great Commission, which the Great Commission came from the man from Nazareth. And he said, spread my word. His word was love, and take care of my sheep. And if you get in farming and you have sheep, you will understand why he didn't say, well, take care of my chinchillas, take care of my sheep, because sheep act a lot like people. Okay? Let me finish the oath or promise. To help other people at all times. To keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. That's the oath right there. Scout's oath or promise. And who are you promising that to? So we need to make a decision at this point. If we are going into an extremely hard time, which the sky is red. The sky is red in the morning. So sailors should take warn. The sky is red. red. You cannot deny that. Unless everything that we're seeing is false, the sky is red. Okay? And so when you get into a leadership problem, what are you going to want to instruct people on? You're going to want to instruct them on keeping themselves physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Okay? Morally straight does not include saying, "Oh, how beautiful and courageous that man putting a dress on." No, that needs to be called out as. I don't want my kids to think that's okay. They need to know that that's mental. That's a mental breakdown. That is a mental health issue and not a good issue. It's a breakdown in mental health. And the guy needs help. Doesn't need to be told, "You're so wonderful and beautiful." You're not. Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Scout Law. And the Scout Law is broken down into 12 points. And I think that you can find these if you just Googled Scout Law. I think you could find them. But I think they apply to the line of work that we are in. Right? Why is it that my words help people? Why is it that people want to hear what I have to say? Am I a Zionist? I don't know. I don't know what a Zionist is. It's because of these principles, I think. I think this is the groove that my nose was put in when I was a kid, and it stayed in there, stayed in that groove. Okay, a scout is trustworthy. Let me read what it says. A scout's honor is to be trusted. If he were to violate his honor by telling a lie, or by cheating, or by not doing exactly a given task, when trusted on his honor, he may be directed to hand over his scout badge. So, in this line of work, I mean, I can't tell you that something is a good idea if it hasn't worked out for me. I can't say, well, this is a good thing to do. I can say, well, this looks like a good thing to do, but I haven't actually done it. I'd like to sometime, but I haven't. And then I'm putting a disclaimer in there. I'm not saying I did it. And I've said for a long time that I go to the Homesteader channels so I can hear new things, how to do new things. And I don't hear new things. So I'm looking for somebody who does the thing more intensely than I do so I can learn from. And I hear a lot of philosophy and things like that, but I'm not hearing doing the thing, right? And when I communicate to you doing the thing, I'm showing you what I'm doing. So there's no question in people's minds. See, I wonder if he really knows how to do this. I wonder is he really farm for a living there? So I try to show it as sort of like something that people would see and say, that's the one I want to listen to because he seems to know what he's doing, right? And occasionally we have problems, and I show them too. A scout, point number 2, a scout is loyal. He is loyal to all whom loyalty is due. His scout leader, his home and parents, and his country. You're loyal. It's a good trait. When someone violates a loyalty issue with you, I recently had this happen to me. Somebody that I cared a lot about. Really violated loyalty to me, had made a statement out loud that implied that I was something that I am clearly not. But either way I answered the question, it was going to be detrimental to my status. And it really hurts, but it's an indicator. And I kind of backed up and said, I think I saw that coming from a long time ago. I had hoped it wouldn't, but it did. So then you have to adjust with that individual, and not give them any more space to take down your organization. You just can't do that. It's certainly one thing if you're building an organization and it's like you make something and I don't know, you're selling a widget or something like that. You can get yourself in a real bad situation, like when you borrowed money and then you have to make money to pay it back at all costs. Loyalty can be violated very quickly, and what do? You may need that person, and you can't just limit their access. So it can be a really tough thing. But I think with these principles in mind, you build your life, your homestead, because your homestead is more than the place. It's really the people that you allow there. Your family, your extended family, and others too, friends. We have friends that we seemed to have a loyal relationship, and all of a sudden, poof, we were ditched. Just strange. And you never know why, but hey, you just take it. Okay, a scout is helpful. He must be prepared at any time to save life, help injured persons, and share the home duties. He must do at least one good turn to someone every day. Isn't that a good thing to get your mind wrapped around? I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to help a little old lady across the street every day. So you are actually searching for, who could I help? Who could I help? Who could I help? And I remember going through this, and my patrol leader, I remember the guy really well. His name was Joe Violet. And he would say, okay, so who did you help? It's been 5 days or 7 days since we met last. Name them. And it's sort of like when you're Catholic and you have to go to confession and confess all your sins, and you wind up lying because you can't remember what all your sins were, or you don't want to tell them the truth. That's kind of the same thing. But being helpful, you are a servant to your fellow man. And this is the reason why we would, step into leadership. We would lead, right? And a good leader is willing to give up leadership too. You don't just get into leadership so you can be the leader. You get into leadership because you've got a group that needs leadership. Like, okay, follow me. And somebody may come along and says, look, I've been doing this a lot longer, and I really think that maybe I should be. And you could yield to them. You could say, well, okay. Or okay, give it a shot. I'll give you a chance here. Okay, a scout is friendly, and we have too much of the other these days. I interact in stores and things like that with people, and it sticks out when somebody is actually friendly. I missed that. Just people who are trying to be friendly. Not because the store ownership told them, but because it brings them personal joy to be friendly. Right? I like that. Like I said, I like going to farm conferences because I like people. I like to see who's who in the zoo and visit like trade shows and see what people are doing and get ideas of other things that I want to do, which I had some great ideas, by the way. Great ideas. Scout is courteous. What's the opposite of courteous? It's rude. A lot of rudeness in our society. Doesn't have to be. You know, when somebody is rude, you totally miss their point. It doesn't reinforce their point. You know, when you see people going to it like in a McDonald's or something, right from jump, they're rude. And then they get into taking swings at each other, throwing food. It just, you don't even know where they're coming from because that rudeness just gets in the way. And it's a real turnoff when somebody's intentionally rude. It's such a turnoff. And like, what are you trying to prove by being rude like that? Be courteous. A scout is kind. This is a big one. You can tell a lot about a person by how they treat somebody who has no pull in their life. Like, I know a guy that I was pretty good friends with. I'm not so anymore. But I remember in the early days, he was real nice to me. But when we would go in place and there was like waitresses and counter help and things like that, he was just terrible to them. And I would, why? But I learned a lot about him over time by seeing how he treated people that, you know, didn't sign his paycheck. Not good. Where if somebody is kind, you know, whatever you do to the least of my brethren, as you do unto me. When you see somebody who is kind to someone that has no pull at all, no money, no wherewithal, you know that you're dealing with somebody that's a high integrity person. Because if you're just nice to like George Soros because he can do stuff to you, well, that's not high integrity. High integrity is when you do the right thing even when nobody is looking. Right? That's high integrity. And that's a tenet of homesteading because you can't fudge things. You know, you can't say you watered the cows if you didn't and hope that the cows are going to be there the next day. My cows got out the day before yesterday. Yeah, I think it was my fault. I went out to check Ruby. She's supposed to have a calf, and it was that blistering cold weather. So I had to check her every 2 hours. That was, or every 4 hours is what I said I would do. And I actually had a situation, an integrity situation, right? So I said to myself, well, I'm going to get up at 2 and check her. And I think we went to bed at like 10. So that would have been 4 hours, something like that. And so 2 o'clock comes around. I wake up, I get up, I come out, go in the bathroom, and I come back out and it's like, oh man, do I not want to go outside? It's 2 degrees outside. And so I'm just going to lay down for a minute. And I laid down, and in my sleepiness, I kind of made a deal with the devil. Like, it'll be okay. I'll just get up at 6, you know, I'll skip the shift. And then, I mean, nobody's watching. Jill wasn't sitting there taking notes or anything, but my mind took me places where I never would have gone in my dreams had I just done what I said I was going to do and put my stuff on, get out to that barn, make sure she doesn't have a calf out there. So it's 2 degrees out. If I have a heifer calf, that's one of my, that'll be a milk cow. And I need another milk cow. So this isn't like, well, if it lives, it lives. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's none of that. This is a calf that I've been waiting for 9 months. You know, I really want this calf. And now that it's warmed up to, 25 or so, calf will be fine. As long as there's enough bedding down, calf will be fine. But anyway, you can't just say, oh, nobody's watching, because I'm the one that's going to find a dead calf in the morning. So I could say, well, nobody's watching, but it's not like I can take the dead calf back to the customer service and say, this one was dead. Can I have another one? You can't do that. So this career field, these things work. These things really work. Like if you do business with another homesteader and you are not trustworthy, that's not going to work out too well. If you're not loyal to the other people that you're doing business with, like the other people in the tribe, that's not going to work out. It'll get around, right? Helpful. If somebody asks me for help and then I say, nah, I don't have time today. See ya. I'm watching Oprah today at 3. That's not going to work. That's going to get around in a hurry. And you don't want to be known as that guy, right? If you're not courteous, so on occasion, I've not been, I don't have these things lined out. I know what they are, and I say, I want to be this way, but I'm not always courteous. And sometimes I have to go back and say, I'm sorry about that. That was like today. Oh, I was in rare form today. Rare form. I was trying to get something done, and I kept having people call me or show up. And, of course they want to talk. And, these are long-term relationships that I'm fostering here. And I can't say, I'm in the middle of something. I can't take anything. I can't do that. And so I have to, okay, let's, I'll get to it. I'll get to my work. And so I'm pretty good at that. But usually it's after they're gone and I've mission accomplished, then I'll boil over at some dog or something like that. That actually, no, I don't know what a Zionist is. And why George Soros? Why not? Sounds like you're trying to start something. Go ahead, Adam. Go for it. Yeah. So after everything was over, I had a job to do. I had a beef to cut up and get inside because it's warming up, and this beef was hanging outside. It was frozen solid, but it's going to warm up, so I had to get it cut up into sixths and get it moved in. It was a big one too, 1,800 pounder. So I come up to the house and I got a cup of coffee. I hadn't had any since breakfast, and it's probably 2 p.m, and my dog jumps up against me, hits the coffee, spills it all over my crotch. I yelled at him, and then I whipped the coffee cup at him. And then I had to go in the house and say, you guys, I'm sorry, because I did it in front of my wife. And she said, for what? Like she didn't even register that I did it, right? So anyway, I had to back up on it. All right. A scout is obedient. Obedient. Okay. Obedient doesn't mean just do everything that you're told, but being obedient means you can take direction, because there are people out there that know things you don't know. And if you sit at their feet and say, tell me everything you know, take it in, be obedient. Cheerful. A scout is cheerful, right? Especially in this career field. I was not cheerful today, and I could have been. Luckily, I went able to go back and say, I'm sorry about that. I shouldn't have done that. Poor Louie. I whipped the coffee cup at him. The poor dog. He didn't know. He was just trying to say hi to me, and I was a jerk to him, But your attitude, especially in leadership, if you are not cheerful, that's going to roll downhill. And the people that you are leading are going to see, boy, if he's not cheerful, how can I expect to be cheerful? And when you're not cheerful, you wind up making dumb mistakes and feeling like poor me, and, the whining mentality. You don't want to be there. So you want to be cheerful because you have to set an example for the people that you're leading, right? Scout is thrifty. this is probably where I got my thriftiness from. I am a very thrifty person. I don't throw things away because I always feel as though this has got another use, you know. And I have a lot of stuff that I kind of um, keep around here for someday I might need it, almost to a fault, almost to a fault, not quite, but almost. And being thrifty, uh, I have a tendency to put function over form. So there's a struggle going on in my heart all the time. I like things to look good, but their function, their functionality is what really counts. Like the paint job on a race car. It looks good, but that's not what makes it get to the winner's circle. It's the durability and the horsepower and the mix of transmission and rear end and horsepower. That's what makes it to the winner's circle. Plus the ability of the person driving it too. But if you are thrifty in the homesteading business and you have a thrift orientated mindset, the extra mile that you go to repurpose something means that you didn't put money out for that thing. And then that money can be used for something else, right? And my last line of defense is use dollars to solve a problem. That's my last line of defense. And then even then, if I'm going to use dollars, I'm going to be a little careful with that. I like to mention the people that are around me that help me. And this is the whole idea of networking. Our tribe, there's people in my immediate tribe that I do business with. And I supply them with meat. They supply me with cars. I supply them with meat. They supply me with rough cut lumber. I need rough cut lumber. I need cars too to get around. We're a one car family. I have trucks though that I can use, but thriftiness is something that you should look at constantly. When I go to another farm and I see that they've thrown stuff up and acquired a lot of debt, it makes me cringe, because that you've just put a ball and chain around your foot. Now, debt sometimes is something that people seem to manage well. We haven't. And it's not for lack of trying. I've tried to, you know what? We need to borrow some money to do this. And Jill will say, oh, she gets a look on her face. She didn't out and out say no. And she can't tell me no anyway, but I don't like to, I take her cues as like sign. If I'm on patrol, and I see an enemy footprint, I don't keep going. I'm going to hold, right? And then regroup, back up, regroup. When I get a certain look on my wife's face, that's something I need to look at. And there's been times when I would have borrowed money. I thought it through in my own head. Well, this is something that we need to throw some money at. So I need to borrow it. And then we'll make it back. We'll pay it back. And then it'll be that. Not a good idea. It's better to pay as you go, right? And then save as well. At the same time, save for that odd, pump that goes out or something. It's good if you have a little bit of a nest egg that you can go to. I'm not a big believer in keeping my resources in currency. I'm not a big believer in that. I've watched the currency go all over the place. Plus, I've lived in countries where the currency crashes over the weekend routinely, and usually that's a sign of an extremely corrupt government. And our government hides it really well, but they are no better. They are no better. Okay, they're not interested in me and you. They're not. And that's just the truth. I mean, Amy Coney Barrett, she's one of the conservative judges that we put in during Trump, and she voted to allow the Border Patrol to take down the barriers so the all the illegals can come through the southern border. Just come on in. Yeah, we'll send you up to Chicago. You'll like it up there. Minnesota, it's all nice place. And Michigan, sanctuary cities, all that stuff. Yeah, good. This is going to work out real good. A scout is brave. All right, so I think to understand this, it would be a good time to just look at the antithesis of this, right? I've heard it said that farming is not for the faint of heart. It can be an emotional roller coaster. The last 5 days, I'm not sure really why, but it was in the single digits. Yeah, it's cold. It's Michigan. It gets cold. I don't know whether it was the propaganda that I listened to that got in, like polar vortex. I'm not sure it was, but I seem to be able to, okay, we got to get the milking done. Don't want to break anything. So be extremely cautious. And maybe it's when I put my coveralls on or something. I go into this like apprehensive state where, oh, I'd like to do this, but it's cold out. I don't want to do that. I don't know what it is, but it seems like all my creativity just gets sapped. My energy gets sapped, and I'm trying to claw my way out of it. You know me. I like to stay busy. I like, okay, it's cold, but I'm prepared for that. I have a wood stove in the butcher shop, and I had a beef hanging too. I had a whole 1,800-pound beef. I could have been cutting that up that whole time, But it would be like, nah. I think I'll just plow a little more. I'll plow the driveway a little more. I think I'll go in early for lunch. I think I'll sit here for another hour after lunch and talk, or see what's on YouTube or something like that. I just was really unproductive for that time, and that does happen to me periodically, and I'm not sure why it is. I'm not sure if it was the weather or not, but being brave is an attitude towards adversity. It's coming. And you can batten down the hatches and put a blanket around you and just shiver. Or you can pull that sword and go after them. You can pull it and go. Because either way, nobody gets out alive. You might as well be brave. You might as well. And what I have found in my life is, and I have a friend. We're still friends. I don't see him much, but we grew up together. And him and I were walking down his street. It was Spring Street, and I'll never forget this. We were not driving yet, so I think he was probably 16 and I was 15, and we're walking down the road. We're walking up the road. We're walking up Spring Street. And this guy was coming down the other way. And I didn't see all this. Like, I was a pretty timid youth, and I didn't catch a lot of things that were happening. I really didn't, because I was pretty innocent. And it was a grown-up, or probably 18, 19-year-old kid in his own car. And this is probably in 1975 or so. And he's driving down, and he goes by us. He stops abruptly, and backs up real fast. And I'm turning around thinking, oh, this must be one of Joe's older brother's friends or something. He's going to say something to us. So I turn around, smile on my face, and, hey, what's going to happen? And the guy has got this real mean look on his face, and he's sitting there. I can see he's got a cigarette in his hand, and that was kind of a sign of, this is a bad boy. And the chick is sitting next to him in the seat. I don't remember her, but I remember this guy. I don't know who he was. And he says to my friend Joe, he says, what are you looking at? And Joe just gets real quiet and doesn't say anything and just stands there and looks at him. And I didn't realize what was going on until it was about 3/4 of the way over. And I'm thinking, this guy is not going to get out of his car and pound Joe because Joe is standing his ground. And then the guy just, had to eat crow and drove off because Joe just stood his ground. Joe was a pretty agile and strong for a young guy. But he just had a mental, he was extremely brave. He was a Boy Scout too. I met him in the Scouts. And I'll never forget that. Like, he did not back down from that guy. He might have gotten whooped from that guy. That guy might have beat him hard. But instead, the guy had to drive off with his girlfriend, thinking these two little kids stood you down, right? Later on in our lives, when we were probably, I think I was probably 17 or 18, and Joe was probably 19. No, I was probably 17 and he would have been 18. There was another kid in our town that was a year older than Joe that beat him senseless. And I wasn't there. Luckily, I wasn't there because I would have been helpless. There was nothing I could do. I was really a timid kid. I grew up in a house full of girls, and I was just timid. I'm really not anymore. But I learned from him about bravery. And you have to be brave going into homesteading. You have to be, because things happen. And then you're like, oh no, now what am I going to do? Things happen. The longer you're in it and the more things that happen and you learn to overcome them, the more confident you get that, hey, I'm probably going to make it through today. I'm probably going to make it through today. I'm probably going to enjoy myself today. I'm probably going to have a good time. But then all of a sudden something happens. Like, some terrible things have happened here. Horrible things have happened here. And you kind of like, now what? But I have to look at it as glasses half full, knowing no one's gotten seriously injured. And I am so thankful that that's gone that way. No one's been seriously injured. There's been some close calls. I came to you about a month ago with a big cut here and a cut in the middle of my forehead from a tank that toppled down off the front end loader. It could have killed me. It could have killed me. It was heavy enough to, falling from that height, it could have hit me hard and killed me. But I had a hat with a bill on it, and I think I had sunglasses on. No, I had sunglasses on, safety glasses, and that took a lot of the shock. But it could have broken my teeth, my nose, whatever. It just didn't hit me in the right spot to do all that damage. Very lucky. Yeah, a lot of things have happened. We've had accidental discharges with guns. There's a bullet hole in the wood stove. That wood stove's gone. I found out about it, some years later when I said, who did this? Oh, that was me. Yeah. But things happen, and you have to be brave to go into every day thinking, well, something bad could happen today, but I know I will get through it. One way or another, I will get through it. What happened the other day? It was cute. Well, got up in the morning, come out, gonna have a cup of coffee, take my swim, and I look out, and the cows are out. They're up by the back of the house. Like, why are you guys out? I go out, and the gate's wide open. I think it was me. Probably was, because I was one that went and checked them. But yeah. So that requires, I can't have my coffee now. I have to get dressed, and I have to go out and get those cows to come back in. Yeah, it worked out okay. But first thing in the morning, it's like, what? Do other people have to deal with this crap? Of course they do. Of course they do. A scout is clean. Clean. Keeps his body and thoughts. Stands for clean speech, clean sport, clean habits, and travels with a clean crowd. Something to that. There's really something to that. Clean habits, dirty habits, they're not good. Clean speech, I got a mouth like anybody, probably worse being from New England, but I really keep it under control. I really do. Okay, the scout is reverent. He is reverent towards God. He is faithful in his religious duties and respects the conviction of others in matters of customs and religion. I don't know if we can't look at that and say reverent towards what we are in charge of taking care of. So you take up a piece of land and you want to homestead, you want to farm. You need to realize that you have a responsibility, because long after you're gone, this land is still going to be here. So you have a responsibility to be convicted about what you've been given charge of. I think that's a good way to look at this. They would call that husbandry, right? Sometimes the animals can really try you, and like whipping a coffee cup at a dog, that's not good. And I really wish that I hadn't done that. But I didn't hit him, so I could at least claim, but that would be a lie. I was trying to hit him. I can at least claim I wasn't trying to hit him, but I was trying to hit him because he got me. Okay, so those are some things that if you are thrust into a leadership position and you have to say, okay, what am I going to do today? Just review this. Just review this. And if nothing else, you can be loyal to the people that you're leading. You can be trustworthy if one of them has a problem and they want to say, hey, I don't know if I got to tell somebody. I got to tell somebody I had impure thoughts, right? And, go tell everybody. You got to be loyal to them. Helpful? That's not hard. How's everybody doing today? Everybody doing okay? I'm here to serve you. What do you need? All right. We got a mission to do today. Let's do it with gusto. Let's do it safely, but let's get her done. Okay. Courteous, kind. You're going to have a weaker member. For whatever you do to the least of my brethren, as you do unto me. That is the Great Commission right there. Obedient. You can be obedient too. All right. So let's say you're mid-level leadership and you get an order from the boss and you have to communicate that to your people. And your people start to groan. You can communicate to them. I don't always understand these orders either. But I have a job to do, and it's to follow the commander's orders to the letter. You are my tools. You are going to help me do that. If you have a complaint, you get on my calendar and you come see me later in private. Do you understand? Calling people out in public is not a good thing to do. Really not. It's hard to bring that one back. Being cheerful, you can do that. Being thrifty, Oh, Sarge, I think we just need to, let's just change this out and see if it works then. That's $100,000 part, Junior. Don't you understand? We need to solve this problem now. Right? And then Brave. If you're a coward, people are going to see it. You know, like I told you, I had to bring this beef in because it's going to start getting warm. You know, we killed this beef 3 weeks ago, got it skunned and gutted, and then it was out aging for 2 weeks, and then it froze solid the last week. Right? Not a bad thing. It's okay. But I had to cut it in half and then cut those halves in thirds, and then you got to move it in. We weighed some of the pieces, and they were in excess of 200 pounds. So it was a challenge. We got a lot of snow out, and even though I've plowed, still there's a little bit of snow we had to get through, and it's icy and stuff. So it was a challenge. And Frank was helping me, and he's not only helping me, he's watching me. He's watching to see how Dad's going to react to these things. You know, definitely austere conditions, trying to get it done. And I was in leadership, and I had to demonstrate a correct, proper attitude, you know, towards this task, which when you look at it, you see this 1,800-pound animal thinking, and you've got to get it from here into the shop in pieces. It's hard. It is a hard thing to do. None of this is easy. And but how am I going to approach it? I approach it thinking with my head instead of my heart. And when I think with my head, I think I've done this 50 other times. I've done it more than that. I've done this 50 times. I will get through it. You know, and he of course is apprehensive because he hasn't done it only one time, you know, in his young life. But when he worked with me, we got it done, and now he's like, I guess I could probably do that next time. And he could. Clean. I mean, whenever we have people here, we try to promote sobriety and clean thoughts. Like, I will shut people down at the campfire with my children there if all of a sudden it gets out of hand, you know, and I start hearing just foulness. I will shut it down, and it sends a message like, that's unnecessary. That is really unnecessary. I understand why people do it and all that stuff, but it is unnecessary, and I do shut that down. And actually, it provides a more stable environment for people to be in, because they know, they get an idea, hey, there's some guardrails here. There's some guardrails. And as a leader, you have to do that, because you can't have a free for all. And if you allow, you know, like you're having roll call in the morning, you let some young guy drop the F-bomb about one of the other sergeants, and that goes unchecked, what will happen the next day and the next day? So yeah, we're farmers, we're gruff, we're rough and tumble and stuff, but we have to, when we're in leadership, we have to show a guideline. We have to show the guardrails on either side. You have to do that for the weaker ones, or people who are not up to speed with some of that foul language and reverent. Okay, so that's that. Let me read through the comments. I think this is a really important message. I think Keith Sutton was here today, and we were talking, and I said, like, who do you know, because he was saying, wow, things are getting really hairy out there. You know, we need to learn to do this. We need to learn to do that, and all that stuff. And I was like, who do you listen to? Like, who is it out there that has a handle exactly exactly what's going on. In my perspective, I kind of reverse engineer things. I look at the fruit and then I say, how did we get that fruit? I see, a totally open border and an invasion going on, and it's problematic what I see coming across. And then I backtrack from there. Is this true? Is this true? Is this true? And then you determine that we have a problem. And this could be a long-term problem. It doesn't have to be. It could be a short-term problem, right? You could have a president that just gets from his bully pulpit, says, well, I hope you had a good time. Now you all need to go home. And I mean now. So if you're not moving towards the border, there's going to be serious repercussions, right? And when you get there, maybe we'll give you $2,200 to finish your journey wherever you're coming from, wherever you've come from. But you can't stay here. And then every law enforcement officer, every citizen will, help with that transition back where you came from. If you want to immigrate to the United States, you have to do it legally, but you cannot just bum rush the border. You think about what happens when you're going the other way and you're an American citizen and you want to, hey, let's just go across the border here. They won't know. We won't have to wait in line. Oh, try that one on for size. See what happens. You might be spending a long time down in Mexico if you do that. But yet, we not only wave them in, we give them credit cards and phones, and here's your lawyer, and here's a plane ticket to wherever you want to go. It's craziness. All right. So Belva's with Dave Smith, hi from Arizona. I bet you Dave Smith could tell us stuff about what's going on down there. I think his governor is actually a Democrat, but has even called out the National Guard. Isn't her name Calvin and Hobbes or Katie Hobbes? Mr. J says, apparently it's happening now. Happening. I wonder what you're talking about, Mr. J. Keith? Andrew Carter, good evening. Adam Boss, are you a Zionist? A Zionist? It sounds like I don't think I am. I think if I knew if I was, I would know if I was a Zionist. No, I don't know what a Zionist is. I know it has something to do with Jews, but I don't really know. Is George Soros a Zionist? George Soros is a Zionist. So I don't line up with George Soros. So I guess I'm not a Zionist. I don't really like George Soros. The idea of having food independence is uniquely important for those aware of Holodomor. Well, see, I don't even know what that is. You got me there. Keith S. Being a Boy Scout brightens back a lot of good memories, camping and being part of a team, working to a goal. Yeah, that is so true. And that's one of the things that is missing in our society right now. My son, Keith, who is actually a pararescueman now, he's in jump school as we speak. He even jumped today. He came home and he was working with my second youngest son. And he says to me, wow, he's doing really good. And I said, what are you noticing? And he says, he's just way more intuitive. And I said, and he says, well, I had shot a cow and dragged it up, and then I had to go help somebody else with something, and they put the gambrel on and pulled him up and started taking the hoofs off and all that stuff. And Jim was not waiting to be told what to do. He was thinking to the next step and just getting whatever needed to be done, And that's what Keith meant, that intuitiveness. So my youngest son, as an example, when me and him are milking, we are so in tune that it's almost like it's choreographed. You know, he's got his stuff that he does. I got my stuff that I do. He watches what I'm doing, and as I'm picking up a bucket, he is pulling the lid off the bucket milker and holding it while I pour the bucket. You know, there's no, we're not even talking. You know, it's just very well choreographed. The task is choreographed almost, and we get, my camera went off, and we get it done effectively and without a hitch. Choreographed. So when you work together with a group of other boys, say you're going to set up a camp, there's going to be, in that dynamic, all men, there's going to be, hey, get your hands out of your pocket and get over here and get this done, which is required. I mean, because these boys don't come off the shelf as scouts. They come off the shelf as little boys that need to be told what to do all the time, reminded, do this, don't do that, right? It's the same thing when you're in the service. You get guys that come in, and yeah, they're not little boys. They got to be 17 or 18, but a lot of them have not been part of any team, no sports team, no nothing like that, no scouts, and they really don't know what the next move is. I've told this story many times. Like, we were taking care of the building that I worked in. We had to take care of the grounds too. Like, we had to keep the lawn mowed and all that stuff. And I had a kid working for me. He was new. He didn't have a security clearance yet. So I had to keep him busy during the day. And my boss wanted a chunk of fence put in. Whatever. Okay, let's do it. Come with me. And I gave him a post hole digger, and I said, I need a hole right here. And then I need another one right here. And I came back a half an hour later, and this kid was from the inner city, and I went ballistic on him at first, but I thought about it, and I thought, maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe. But when I got back, that hole was this deep. And I said, is that all you've done? And he said, well, I didn't know how deep you wanted me to go. Okay. Well, I wanted 2 feet, so get busy. And it turned out he was a dirtbag, but I didn't find that out until about 6 months later. But yeah. But a lot of these kids had no clue how to do any of this stuff. And if you didn't get them trained up, and there wasn't, the intuitive part of it to where, okay, we've got to get a load of bombs on this airplane. We don't have time for instructing everybody. You guys are supposed to know how to do this. Let's just go. One guy's grabbing one, another guy's grabbing another, and, getting it done. Timely fashion. We're missing that. We're missing teamwork. We are missing teamwork. By the way, I guess I'm done with that. That subject. I want to bring up and reinforce that we are going to be doing an internship program this summer. It's going to be our second year doing it. Last year we just had one, and it was Kavi Bali, American-born, Indian family. Very interesting. We learned a lot about each other during that time. He turned out to be really good, and he said he would like to volunteer to be like a lead man for the other interns, because I didn't feel as though I could have more, because I don't have the bandwidth to be training a bunch of kids during our busiest season. So they'll work for him, and he will report to me. So we're going to have 4 total this year. So my lead man, Kavi, 2 girls, and 1 other male. And I have had nobody fill out an application yet. It's over on bakersgreenacres.com. So if you have people in your circle that want to be part of a, functional and pretty dynamic multi-purpose farm, turn them on to it. We're going to look through the applications and pick the best people for the job. All right. Okay. Holodomor, starvation death in the Ukraine brought on by Stalin. Wow, Inga, you're unbelievable. All right. I didn't know about that. I mean, I knew about that, but I didn't know it was called Holodomor. I didn't know it was called that. So, where would we be right now if every time one of these organizations, like the Department of Agriculture, Department of Natural Resources, Department of you name it, tries to shut down a farm operation, and then they love the news to run with that, like Amos Miller, for goodness sakes, he's just an Amish guy trying to feed his neighbors, being shut down by the FDA and the USDA and probably the Department of Justice. They love those stories to get out there because then farmers say, well, the hell with this. I'm not going to do this. I don't want those guys breathing down my neck. That's why they love doing it. Where would we be if every one of you that's on here says, you know what, I'm not even going to listen to Mark because he's going to get us in trouble. We're not supposed to be farming. We need to listen to Joe Stalin. Joe Stalin was all about centralization of the food supply. He would never starve us. He's a good guy. Anybody with a mustache like that must be a good guy. And what did he do? I mean, they really put Hitler on a pedestal as far as being evil, but Joe Stalin was no choir boy. He killed a lot of his own people. I think he even killed more. And so whenever they pull a play out, like, let's centralize all the food. Let's put out of business all the small farms. Let's float these rumors out there that certain things you can't do. Against the law, they'll say. It's against the law. Oh, no, it's against the law. And they love it when you repeat that stupid stuff. Tell a lie enough times and people will believe it. And that's what they've done. And so what do they go after? They go after the things that would probably sustain you the most, like milk, like processing animals, right? They want that all centralized. Got to be a USDA shop, right? The USDA, everything's got to be stainless steel. Even your teeth have to be stainless steel to work there. They float these stupid rumors, stupid rumors. Why do you want to be a USDA inspector? So you can sell to restaurants, of course. That's where the money is. Oh, really? The restaurant has to take your stuff. They have to mark it up and they have to resell it so they can make their money. And guess what? Their personnel need to get paid more than you do because you're just a dirt farmer. So you don't even want to be selling to restaurants or retail stores. You want to be selling to your neighbors. You want to actually be like Amos Miller says he is, but he's not actually that. He's an aggregator is what he is, and that's a dumb story. But I'm not backing the guy up. A lot of people have said, hey, have you heard this? You need to call him. You need to help him out. I looked into it real close from a couple of different angles and talked with people that have been there and that have interviewed him. And, I always talk to you guys about these organizations like the MDA and the USDA and FDA. you do not want to get in any kind of contract with them. You don't want to have an agreement with them. You don't need to. But if you do have an agreement with the MDA and then you violate the agreement, you're in violation of a contract, and they will haul you into a civil court, not a criminal court. Criminal court would be if you would get hauled into for human trafficking. That's criminal. Robbing banks, that's criminal. There's a difference between criminal law and civil law. There's a difference, a big difference. So what things could we do on the farm that are criminal? Butchering human beings, that's criminal. Yeah. Manufacturing methamphetamine, that's criminal. Butchering chickens, no, that's not criminal. There would have to be a law for you to break in order for you to be criminal. There is no law concerning chicken butchering. There's regulations that the USDA puts out, and then the states like to tweak them too. Oh, in this state, you can raise up to 2,000 birds. No, I think in this state, 20,000 birds. And then in some states, they back it down to, well, yeah, the USDA says 20,000, but we say 10,000 because we can. What do you care? But if you get into a contract with them and you make a contract and then you receive a permit, you've agreed to those terms. It's sort of like living in an HOA. If you want to buy a house in an HOA, you've agreed to those terms. And they say no flags, and then you put an American flag up. And, well, this ain't right because they're telling me to take my flag down. You agreed to it. You agreed to it. Right? They say no flags because some idiot will put up a swastika or a rainbow flag or something else. And anymore, somebody that puts up a rainbow flag would say that the American flag, that's controversial. Didn't they have slaves, they'll say? See, so HOAs say, hey, just no flags, all right? No flags. No political signs in an HOA. That's against my First Amendment. Look, you agreed to it, okay? All right, so I can't get on board with people who are being oppressed by the government when they made agreements with them and then they violate the agreements. Like I can't get in on that, I mean, if the government comes out of nowhere and attacks somebody, I've been on the receiving end of that, and it was all because I questioned them. So I became the focal point, and then they did. I mean, I had them rolling up the way. Well, that was a different story. I mean, it does happen, and there again, that's where being brave comes in. They make threats, and threats are, you make threats like, what are you looking at? That's a threat. I mean, the guy could have said, nothing. I wasn't looking at nothing. And the guy said, yeah, well, you better not. Then he'd drive off and he'd tell his girlfriend, you see that, babe? That little punk. Oh, you're so wonderful. You're so wonderful. Right? But governments do that too. They make threats. They put out opinions on things. You can be fined up to $700,000. No, you can be fined up to $10,000 per animal. Can be up to, right? Nice nebulous terms. They always put them in because they can't use definitive terms. You will be fined $10,000 per animal. Really? You think you've got a law. You would think you're dealing with a law here, but you're dealing with a regulation that you made up. So no wonder why you use that type of language. You could be. Well, you you could inhale a piano into your lungs. You could, I guess. You know, I mean, I don't want to say that it couldn't happen because David Copperfield, he may have done that act out on Epstein Island. You know, he may have done that act. Who knows? That's why they use terminology like that. But if you can see through it, a lot of your courage can come from there when you know their playbook. They don't have many plays, folks. They really don't have many plays. And when you kind of back up from this and you realize you're not doing anything illegal, and you almost start to look forward to the next time that one of these Wiener Schnitzels approaches you, so you can make an example of them, actually, because you really can, and we know how to do it. We've done it enough times now that we pretty well have a lock on this. You see, the Scout law is not really law. It is the law of this organization, BSA, Boy Scouts of America. But like if I'm not friendly as a Boy Scout, they're not going to take my kerchief or my neckerchief and hang me. Right? This is not that type of law. But in the United States, we have laws, and like capital murder, they will hang you. You know, if you cross that line, they will hang you. And we all agree that that needs to be done, right? State employees or contractors for the state are required to take an oath. And part of that oath is to respect and protect the constitutional rights of the constituency, the people that they work for. If you work for the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Agriculture is a contractor that's in place to provide their mission for the people of the state of Michigan. And if one of those employees steps over that line of protecting the constitutional rights of the constituency, they can be held accountable. And as soon as they step over it, they're on their own, because their organization will not protect them. They will not protect them if they have stepped over the line. You're on your own. And so you just wait for them to do that, and then you zap them with a lawsuit. And, you know, a guy like me, I have been through this, and I realize that if we as American citizens, as U.S. American citizens, were not protected with a blanket of protection provided to us by the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights more specifically, we'd be in deep doo-doo. Deep doo-doo. Can you imagine if the way it is right now, with this small number of tyrants running around, if we didn't have the ability to say that is wrong? We still have that ability. I mean, you don't have it on Facebook, you don't have it on YouTube, and I don't know, some of the other ones. I'm hearing Rumble's even getting pretty. But I can go up to the county and I can say whatever I want. I can stand on the sidewalk up there and I can yell, Barack Obama is gay. And, you know, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. You can't say it. I can't say it on YouTube. Like, this will have to be scrubbed. This will be scrubbed tomorrow, because that one would get me. But we have that right. We have the right to own and bear. That is a huge thing, because it gives you that ability to defend yourself, right, from, you know, bad things. and it's a deterrent mostly because people that would want to do you harm, they're like, he might be armed. I don't know. I don't know if we should. He might be armed. He might be sitting with an M60 behind that door. He might be, right? Very important. Fourth Amendment. You know, we have the right to be safe in our residences and our personal effects. We're free from unlawful search and seizure. They can't just come and ransack your house. They have to have a warrant from a judge, and judges don't issue warrants very easily, only on affirmation from a law enforcement officer that he believes that laws are being broken. Laws, not regulations, laws, right? And judges don't like to give them out. I mean, they do in certain places, you know, they seem to give them out pretty easy, but usually it's because those places are so infested that, you know. And the Fifth Amendment is a huge one, and it's your life, liberty, and property is protected under the due process of law, not regulation, not fatwa. That's why all this stuff that went on during the Wu flu, oh, you got to wear a mask. Is it the law? Well, no, but the governor said you did. Does the governor make law? No, but, and, you know, I was not going to have it at all. And I called the sheriff in my county and the next county over where we do a lot of business. I said, I need to know right now, do you have any plans of enforcing this directive from the governor's office? And they were both of them law enforcement officers. We're not policy enforcement. Now, if the legislature had gotten together and had an emergency session and they made it law that you have to wear a face mask, law, that's like law in this state, you got to wear a seatbelt. Now, I don't agree with it, but it is a law. You have to wear a seatbelt. Probably a good thing, but I don't think they need to be getting involved in my personal, you know, safety. But anyway, it is a law, and if you are not wearing a seatbelt, you get fined because you've broken a law. And I understand that if you do it enough, that you can wind up doing time for it. I don't know. I don't get involved with it much because I wear my seatbelt. I would wear it anyway. But, well, I better be truthful. Sometimes I don't. All right, so I'm going to end it. I appreciate everybody coming by. We will not be having a consulting call tomorrow night. For those of you who are not Tribe Plus members, you need to get over to bakersgreenacres.com, follow the directions, become a Tribe Plus member. You will have access to all of the videos that we've ever done. They've all been cataloged, every subject that we've done, all the how-to videos, plus my daily how-to, and I'm going to be showing you what I'm doing on a daily basis. So it'd almost be like you're a mouse in my pocket. We just thought we had it lined out, and then we found out the Telegram only lets us make a 60-second video. So that's not going to work. Jill sent out an email to all the Tribe Plus people to help them with the links follow through, and we're going to have to retract that. We have to go to a different platform because I don't know. She's looking at maybe we can use YouTube if it's private. Maybe we wanted to use someone totally different because the problem with YouTube is, let's say there's 90 Tribe Plus members. They're not getting notifications. And although it's a private, group, they're still looking into it. And if you're talking about things that they don't like, they just limit your reach. And it would be really nice if there's 100 people in Tribe Plus, and I can pick up the phone and I talk to all 100 of them at one time. That's powerful right there. That is powerful, because you don't know what we're going to have to do in the future. We really don't know what we're going to have to do. Okay. All right, I'm going to get going. Remember, anyone can farm. Get out there and make it happen.